I welcome you all, members of the press present here and observers present, of course, members of the National Elections Response Group, National Human Rights Commission present, WANEP, supported by ECOWAS. This is the Joint Observer Statement. The mayoral and chairpersonship elections of May 2023. The background: the Independent Electoral Commission approved the nomination of 32 candidates to contest for the 81 local government administrative areas, the 2 municipalities, that is Banjul and KMC, and the 6 local government areas. In the 24th of May mayoral and chairpersonships elections, 30 candidates representing 94% male and 2 candidates representing 6% women. Out of the 19 registered political parties, 6 parties nominated candidates and 11 are independent. No candidate is a person with disability, unlike the parliamentary election, where we had one with disability who was a candidate. Opening of the polls. Generally, the polls open on time at 8 a.m. Opening procedures as outlined by law were complied with, and most of the polling staff were present. The majority of the polling stations were easily accessible, and polling officials and party agents present carried out their duties in the areas observed. All the required election materials were available in adequate quantities in all of the polling stations visited. The security personnel and party agents were visibly present in all the polling stations. The media personnel were also present in most of the polling stations at the time of opening. The voting process. Our observations. Overall, voting started on time in all the polling stations visited. At most polling stations, the voter turnout was relatively high, and most voters in queues were women. The voting process was orderly, and the secrecy of the ballot was generally adequate in most polling stations. There was fair representation of women among IEC officials, party agents, and security personnel at all the polling stations visited. Priority voting was accorded to the elderly and persons with disabilities. Posters of candidates were also visible on ballot boxes to aid identification of the candidates. There was high presence of security, especially at hotspots areas, notably Banjul, the Upper River region, and the Lower River region. There were reported tensions in Banjul between NPP and UDP supporters, which prompted the intervention of the paramilitary intervention unit. The presence of NPP vehicles and allegations of inducement by NPP supporters were also reported from several polling stations in Banjul. Reports also indicate that party militants, and here we're talking about all the parties, mainly NPP, UDP, were seen loitering close to polling stations in Banjul, despite attempts by security personnel to disperse them. Similar to what was observed during the councillorship elections, NPP militants in identifiable NPP vehicles were seen at polling stations, allegedly intimidating voters. The NPP candidate for West Coast region, Mr. Sidi Cisse, was on Kirfatu, vowing to stop the voting at a particular polling station in Brufut due to a vehicle parked there, which was branded with pictures of Ahmed Jite, who is an independent candidate for the same region. Reports from our observers on the ground also indicated that IEC officials in Banjonkoto, which is in Fajikunda, attempted to temporarily stop voting to break for lunch while voters were in the queue. This resulted in a row between voters and IEC officials. Some polling stations observed had limited accessibility for elderly and persons with disabilities. The closure of polling stations and the counting of votes. Polling stations officially closed at 5 p.m. Counting took place at all polling stations after closure, and electoral officials followed the laid down rules and regulations. The process was generally smooth and peaceful. All the result sheets were signed by all candidate the party agents in the stations observed. Results were posted at the polling station, and candidate agents were provided with a copy of the results form. In conclusion, despite political tensions in Banjul and some areas, voting proceeded in a calm and orderly manner in most polling stations observed throughout the country. The IEC rules and guidelines were generally followed by all the contending candidates and political parties. Voter turnout improved compared to the councillorship elections. However, there is a need for the sensitization of citizens on the importance of civic participation on local government elections in the overall and in the overall governance, good governance and development of the Gambia. There must be increased, consistent and active civic participation. Political parties and leaders are also urged to preach peace and political tolerance and to always promptly condemn bigotry and hate speech. The IEC must also take prompt action to ensure electoral laws and guidelines are respected to consolidate our democratic principles. This is a statement from the NERJ group. We will certainly engage the IEC. We will engage the stakeholders, the parties involved, and the leadership. That we constantly do. But this was what we received right now. And as we rightly said, we will come up with very strong recommendation based on verification of all this information that we have. But be rest assured that we will engage the IEC, but not only IEC, but all the stakeholders. And if you hear the report that was read, we've started urging and giving some recommendation, preach peace to all the stakeholders involved. Let's get away from bigotry, hate speech. So we will do that, be rest assured. Thank you. Thank you.